I've shown you the demolition of my house. Now we get to start on the fun part. No, not drywall. That's, well, it's not fun, it's just drying walls. Instead, I'm going to give you a preview of what's coming up for the next few months of videos. I know that work like this is not a common experience, and I wanted to share the process, both for those who are just curious and for those that are trying to navigate it themselves. If you just want to see the final plans, that's in the last section, but I at least think the journey to get there is equally exciting. When I first bought this house about a year ago, I knew it was going to need a lot of work. The kitchen and single bathroom upstairs, especially. I also knew that while I am always excited to take on painting, staining, plastering, and a little bit of woodwork, plumbing and most electrical is way outside of my range of knowledge. I can replace a faucet or a light switch, sure, but just ordering the parts for the other two bathroom sinks in the house was a form of roulette I lost as often as I won. Unfortunately, since the bathroom was going to need to be rearranged, no matter what, and the old plumbing was more than just a little bit of a mystery, the scale of the project was well outside of what I could just design as a layperson. Fortunately, there are some great construction and design companies in my town that are willing to work with older homes. I reached out to Lauren Wood Builders, who does gorgeous work, but normally manages entire custom built houses or renovations of that scale. And somehow my ideas were weird enough and house interesting enough for them to take it on. This actually all got started before I even closed on the property, but design didn't really take off until late June. The first couple of months was just gathering info and a basic plan. We did a Matterport scan of most of the house, so now my barely moved into mess is fully recorded in 3D for posterity. This isn't a precise way to measure. Ye old-timey tape measure was also used, but it mocks things up in a digital format really quickly in a way that gives a good visual of what's already there. It's basically a very fancy camera on a stick that everyone dodges while it runs, so we avoid that awkward Zillow listing vibe. This is also where we dug into the cabinets and kitchen flooring a bit more, realizing there was not a way to just do some refurbishment and shifting of doors. Basically, by the time all the damaged parts came out and were replaced, I might save a little money, but if I wanted any change to the tiny drawers or to shift the dishwasher around, it opened into the oven basically. That budget went out the window. I think if the kitchen had been original to the 40s or was the style that I was really going for, that would be different. But after admitting that we needed a complete fresh start, I am so glad that I did, because again, these walls, ugh, the fun part began. I met a whole team of people that would be involved in parts, but the main characters are Peyton, my designer, Aaron, the project manager, and Sherry, the design manager. There's roughly 70 people that work for the company, and genuinely I've had the best experience with everyone so far, which if you've ever done any construction or renovations is a big deal. This is where the fun part of the design takes off, though. All of the inspiration images and samples. I genuinely had so many things to keep track of, and still do, which is why I'm so happy that the sponsor for today's video is Milanote. Milanote is an amazing tool for organizing your projects, big or small. I am absolutely a visual organizer for complicated things, and it's especially difficult to track it all when there's a design aspect. With Milanote, I can collect everything I need, pictures, links, research, documents, in one place where I can organize them in a way that makes sense for my brain. And I've even been sharing it with the team working on my kitchen and bathroom renovations. This is my main project board, set up with the floor plan of the house so I can see how the rooms connect, and each board has the color of the walls. Then I can follow through to each room to keep track not only of the colors and inspiration images, but I can add a sort of wish list of decor and furniture. It's especially easy with the web clipper extension. No copy pasting, just click the save button over the image and tell it where to go. and it instantly gives me a photo with each link so I can compare things side by side. It's super easy to add notes, draw all over the boards, and keep adding sections for every problem. I'm just getting started with the overall design of each room, but as I have to pick cabinet knobs, lights, frames, and more down the road, I can see how they all fit in. There are over 100 templates to choose from if you don't know where to start, and even a little bin of stuff off to the side where you can dump things to organize later. And if you're like me and constantly remembering important things to add while out and about, the mobile app syncs right up, especially great if you need to add pictures of options while shopping. I'm so excited about sorting my projects out on Milanote. I can keep track of everything, update it as I go, and not have to scrounge around for a lost bit of information. This board is only going to keep growing as I move through the entire house over the next few months and years. Finally, Milanote is available for free with no time limit. Sign up using the link in the description and start your next creative project. If you enjoy using Milanote, let me know down below in the comments. There was an initial questionnaire that I have long forgotten, aside from the answer I gave for my inspirational description. Art Deco Wes Anderson. My way of making sure we're all on the colorful side of the 1920s and not the black and gold glamour nonsense that I've talked about extensively before. Especially when it comes down to a kitchen and bathroom, the last thing I wanted was neutral, permanently ensconced. But the first step was to work out the rough layouts. The kitchen layout was going to be mostly the same. The one request I had was adding a small table and seating area in the corner where the bar was. I settled on the bench across the wall because it felt the least invasive to the rest of the space. It also left just enough room to switch the dishwasher to the other side of the sink. Previously, I had to trap myself in the tiny corner in order to put plates away in the upper cabinets. The fridge is also shifting just slightly to the center of the wall, with a pantry on the left and shelves to finish off the right side. Nothing too crazy. Unlike the bathroom, the toilet absolutely had to move because of the tiny space it was in, and once that domino falls, it's all going. Next to the bathroom were two closets. One is a second hall closet, not something I found necessary, and the other is the main bedroom. More necessary, but a horrible use of space. It was both too narrow and too deep. Could not be a walk-in, but barely fit anything hanging. So I sacrificed both of those to the bathroom. The main bedroom is going to be getting some fancy built-ins at some point after things settle down, a project I do plan to take on myself. And it will be nice having a single wall without multiple windows or angles to actually put a bed on. Wow! However, with that extra space, there were almost too many options. We played around with a fancy one and a simple one just to see what the difference would be. Basically, a full-on shower room with all tile and a standing tub in the back, or reusing the current tub and tucking the toilet back in there as well. The window complicated things a bit, and the full shower room was more than a little bit of a budget strain, so we went with the perfect fit option where everything just slotted in like it was meant to be there. Tons of cabinet storage on either side of the sink. No, I don't want a double sink. Perfidy, I know. And another storage tower in the back portion for all of the towels, toilet paper, and the like to be within arm's reach of everything. We also messed around with a bench under the window here, but you'll see that was cut for budget later. Also, didn't really seem that necessary. I can put a little stool in that corner and be fine. There were a few meetings to narrow down options when it came to general lighting and cabinet placement after that. Once the layouts were pretty much approved, it was on to the details and supplies. My personal favorite meeting was where the table was laid out with piles of paint colors, wood, tiles, metals, and every little sample you could imagine. I had fallen in love with Farrow and Ball's Boncha green, but we had a bit more open range for the bathroom. We picked through various greens, pinks, blues, and some black and white. Other choices like woods for the cabinets, countertops, fixture finishes, and flooring went fairly smoothly. What did not happen quickly was choosing the kitchen floor tile. We unintentionally found ourselves going back to terracotta with the color scheme. Not a problem theoretically, but the floor that was in the kitchen and entry already was terracotta, and a problem. Wide grout and very textured surface meant that it was impossible to get clean, which meant that I refused to go with a super pitted or rough textured version, which also meant a higher price tag. Middle ground happened with choosing a square shape over the complex star pattern to save on labor, but I had to keep reminding myself this is one of those decisions you don't want to regret later because it's way more expensive to rip it out and replace it in 10 years. We genuinely tried so many different brands and various options to get the color or the feel without the problems, but turns out a lot of colors can look very different online. So sample, sample, sample is what I learned for any renovation project, no matter what. At this point, the more polished layouts and material choices went off to the various departments and the local cabinet makers. Stoll's Woodworking does amazing custom work and works commonly with Lauren Wood Builders, so they are doing all of the kitchen and bathroom cabinets. Notably, the process of all of this picked up in late June, and by the time we were getting to sending things to other departments, it was September. It's just a lot of meetings back and forth with little changes to the design to make sure that no one's time gets wasted, aside from maybe my poor designers having to go back over things, but it wasn't too bad. We got feedback from all of the different areas and made some minor adjustments before it went into the long process of forming a formal budget, which not shockingly was over budget I had originally planned for, but we were able to pick through and reduce on some obvious and not so obvious things. Cut the built-in kitchen table. I found one on Facebook Marketplace for $50. That's the perfect size and antique, so yeah, that's cool. We got rid of the back on the kitchen bench. I can make a cushion without a wooden structure there. No bench in the bathroom. Reduce the curved edges of the cabinets to be curved shelving because curving trim or large bits of wood, like entire doors, is apparently really time consuming and difficult, therefore very costly, which of course means I am going to then come back in and learn how to do that just because I've been told it was difficult because that's who I am. Not that I want to add it to the kitchen, I just now I have a challenge of learning how to do it and putting it maybe in the built-ins in my bedroom or something. That's just how I am. But also changing the floor tile shape, adjusting the amount of lighting just a bit. They had under cabinet lighting for every single shelf, which is just kind of standard, and then you pull back a little bit. And then just a whole bunch of other things that were just added on by different departments and not necessary for me. So this is the point where everything gets nitpicked through, down to do they get a porta potty or do we use my bathroom in the house? If it saves some money. So I am also taking on a bunch of the work where I can as well. Before construction started, we pulled down a bunch of the wood trims and the bathroom tile. My mother has absconded with most of the trim to refinish it ourselves. We'll also be doing a lot of the painting. I plan to do a few murals around the house instead of wallpaper, and obviously I'm handling the curtains and cushions and that sort of thing. But if you have watched my demolition video, you'll understand why I did not take everything on myself. The last couple of months leading up to the start were approving every item from towel rings to tile. I was able to look over things like the electrical layout and request any changes in switches or outlets. This actually goes to the basement. Nothing to do with the kitchen, so the fact that there's now kitchen light from the entry into the house is great. Previous one, remember there was a really big bench seating area over here. Previous one was, previous one was over here on the wall. Genuinely, like barely reachable with your arm. There's also a whole thing, not a good idea. This was where the previous light switch was, or the two on the walls that went for the under cabinet lighting and other bad lighting. Man, you're so helpful. Some of the detailed planning would shift based on what was in the walls, where framing was, how much of the old drywall had to come out, etc. We had some last minute changes because of both budget and feedback from various people. For example, we had chosen one brand and style of fixture for the entire bathroom. All the shower stuff, sink, towel rods, and more. Turns out, based on recent experience, the plumbing team had found the quality of that brand poor enough that they were having to replace broken versions in recent builds. Something to do with tin linings. There was some back and forth on what quality options there were that would still keep to the desired feel. It ended up being a smidge more expensive, but I honestly think most plumbing fixtures today are the worst designs I've ever seen. So I consider that worth it for both quality and me not hating something. So many are just tubes on tubes or have weird bulges for no reason whatsoever. Seriously, what are we doing? Which brings us back to the final designs. These won't have all the tiny details like which pull handles I chose for the kitchen cabinets. I'd rather cover that when I actually have them to show you and report back on. But know that it was part of the process near the end. First up, the kitchen. The lower cabinets made of hickory with a quartz countertop that resembles soapstone, so a little bit more of a flat finish, are going to run around the long wall and frame the range just like before. I am keeping that range because that's the one that I just got. On the far end, the cabinets will be full height and depth to the top, so I have a nice spot for all of the tea and coffee. The upper cabinets will be painted and run just the length of the one wall. We tried some corner options, but it just made for an awkward space with how tight to the range hood it is. The last cabinet is a little deeper than the others, however, so there's a nice space on the counter that I can tuck something like a mixer back into. There was some play with an appliance garage that had a movable wall or a lifted door, but again, it just kind of took up counter space that was in a high traffic area. I might add a small curtain later if I feel like it wouldn't impede. We're also making use of these smaller dead spaces to put shelves in with brass rails. I really wanted this next to the window for a few plants and next to the range hood so I can put cooking supplies like oil bottles off the counter. Honestly, just having a real range hood is going to be pretty exciting. I've just had the useless microwave vent or recirculating ones in my other places over the years. I look forward to being able to cook without setting off the smoke alarms, which, by the way, also go off with dust. So that's been fun. The sink is a farmhouse style with a single large basin. The previous one was shallow and split in two, which meant that I couldn't fit a pan in my sink. And I genuinely do cook a lot. Not right now, but I think that's reasonable given I don't have a kitchen. Another reason for a good tile trim around the counter and behind the stovetop, though. I'm still hoping to find some antique or interesting tiles to add to the area behind the stove. Not the whole thing, though, just a little bit of it. A few accents. Tucked into the far wall is a bench under the window that I'll bring in my little antique table for. Room for one or two people to eat, and extra workspace if friends are over and we're all cooking. I need to decide on fabric soon so I can prep for making bench cushions as soon as I can get final measurements. And finally, fixing that fridge in the doorway issue. It's moved over to center, a new fridge that's way better set up for what I need, and it's now centered on the wall with a small pantry on the left. We are squeezing my little oven microwave device over there as well. More pantry space on the right of the fridge with open shelves. Subtle curves were one of the themes throughout, but that can get very difficult and costly. So, with curved edges to shelves and some of the crown molding mirroring that, it should bring in the effect. Admittedly, the thing I might be most excited for here is the lighting. Not just because the previous kitchen had just the one sad central light and some very aged amber options in the range hood and over the sink, but because the light switches were all tucked fully into the room. Nothing near either of the entryways to the kitchen. Now there will be at least one light switch to the room on both sides to cover the central light or small pot lights. No more reaching 3 feet around the wall to find a switch, while also tripping over all of the thresholds because the floor is an inch higher than it should be, which was because of a thick layer of plywood, cement, and tiles, each close to half an inch. Hopefully, we can bring it down closer to the hardwood height, which will also mean I don't have a massive drop going out of the doors. Seriously, what is this? A hazard. What it will be is a lovely, simple terracotta floor. I would say it's a nod to the old flooring, but it's more that it goes perfectly with the greens and the warm woods. Also, my mug. Was my entire kitchen built around this mug? Maybe. Maybe it was just subliminally working on me every morning. The bathroom inspiration was more, how obnoxiously vintage and colorful can I be? There were a lot of tile samples to narrow down, but we settled on a very poppy peach. The tiles won't be covering every wall, that again gets expensive very quickly, but they'll surround the bath area, and the black edge trim will also go around the archway between the two spaces. With expanding into the two old closets, it gives enough room for plenty of storage and a bit of privacy. No longer is the toilet the first thing you see coming up the stairs. It's tucked around the corner and will be behind a tall cabinet meant for towels and other things best stored in reach. Definitely necessary. Also, having a towel rod within reach of the bathtub. Crazy. The bathtub itself is being re-enameled to match the peach tile, and I will be filming as much of that as they'll let me harass them for because that sounds so cool. As the first thing I ever did in this house was wrench out the glass doors on the tub, I did refuse to put new ones back on, no matter how nice. So I will be making a fancy shower curtain. All of that is tucked in the back half. The first section has a sink and two tall built-in cabinets on either side. Most important to me was, again, the lighting here. Two long side sconces rather than something overhead. No more facing the window with a handheld mirror to put on makeup in decent light. The renderings had some sort of wallpaper in this middle section, but since it's a bathroom dealing with moisture, also it's me, I'm going to paint a small mural there instead. A couple of spotlights behind will frame out the space without it being obnoxiously bright because I can move the light wherever it needs to be. I did just realize though that this wall is perfect for a few plants on shelves. It gets a lot of light, and that's probably a better choice than something that would fade. While all of the window and door trim will stay the same, there will be coved crown molding and then tile at the base around the floor, which will be a classic black and white tile. That's the most vintage bathroom thing I think you could possibly do. The finish line is still a while off, even at the high speed of construction so far. It's reached the hurry up and let it dry point. But don't worry, even though the walls have made it this far, we're still going to step back and take a look at everything from the history of plumbing and electrical to kitchen cabinets and popcorn ceilings. If you want to see more regular updates on this house in the meantime, go join my Patreon. Either way, I will see you here for lots more videos coming at this point nearly every week. So definitely keep an eye out because I've got a lot of great things coming your way. I moved the camera so you can experience the archway. In case you have not watched my original video on the house, there's 3, 2, I don't remember. There's multiple other archways. I restored one. I was correct. I do have 3 original archways and now one it's restored. Restored. We're adding one. So this house has a lot of archways because they're cool. You want to join? Yeah? Yeah, there's nothing. Thankfully, no more holes that she can fall into. Ugh.